Hey everyone of Witches of the Moon, this is Bravehawk, doing the topic for most reputable authors. And my philosophy is that any good author can write a bad book. So instead of telling you authors to follow, I believe, that's something you'll find in your own time. That's something that you'll fall into. But I do recommend some books that are almost must-haves for your collection. So I'll go ahead and start with those. I don't have them with me exactly because some of them I've loaned out or I just can't find in my house. So I just took pictures from the internet and I can show you some resources. This one I actually saw at Barnes & Noble's the other day and I read through it and I really liked it. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend this one. It's called The Mystic Cookbook, The Secret Alchemy of Food by Dennis Lin and Meadow Lin. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. It looks like it's backwards on here, but it's The Mystical Cookbook by Dennis Lin and Meadow Lin. And it actually tells all different ways that you can incorporate food into your magical life. Foods that you can present to your ancestors, foods that feasts that you can have with your family or your friends or your coven and whatnot, and kind of bring more spirituality in your life through food. And I really enjoyed that book. There's specifically one section that I liked. It was having dinner with your ancestors. I know in New Orleans, or any voodoo practitioners, there's a tradition where they eat in silence. And it was kind of like that, but it was a little more family oriented, and it was even a non-practitioner can do. You can invite someone. It was just basically a feast to remember your loved ones. And I know in the voodoo one that you bring a picture and you set it on the table and you eat in silence. And that one, it was a little bit different. So you can pick up that book and see if that's something that you like. If you don't want to order it off, Amazon or something, just go to Barnes & Noble's. I'm sure they have it. So I'm a bit of a classic Wiccan, I guess. A classic practitioner. So a lot of my stuff are older books, but I looked around and they're still out there. So one of the ones that really hit home for me, the one that really kind of it wasn't a how-to book. It wasn't like a Wiccan cookbook in a sense. It wasn't a grimoire. It was just a story of someone, following their path and this strangeness that they had, and they just followed it and explored it. And I think that's a lot of what this tradition is about. These traditions that we follow, I mean, spirituality in general, it's a hard thing to really pin down and put something on and say this is what spirituality is. Spirituality is different for all of us. That's why I think having a religion is a bad thing, because we all believe different things. We all have minds, and our minds work in mysterious ways, in different ways than other people. So that's why I'm recommending this book. It's John Edward, One Last Time. And what I really loved about this book is his family was really supportive of him, even though they didn't understand it. They were very supportive of him, and they just had faith that he would do the right thing with his gift. And that's something that I really value in people. And this book, it's A+ in my book. I'm a bit eclectic in my collection of books. Just because I don't practice it doesn't mean I won't read up on it. And especially when it comes to voodoo and hoodoo, I for some reason I'm fascinated with it, even though it's not really my practice. I follow it. And so the one that I would really like to recommend to people if you are going into that path, or you're just want to know what Loa or Lawas are. Everyone pronounces it different, so but Haitian Voodoo, the Haitian Voodoo Handbook, Protocols on Riding the Lawa. And there was some in here that I've actually never heard before, especially the ones about the twin sisters that you offer candy to. I thought that was really interesting. And that's, if you are just want to add like a book to your collection and you want something different, this is definitely something that you probably haven't seen before, and it would be a good gem in your collection. So like I said before, I'm a bit old school when it comes to my reading, and I actually think like the older the book gets, the better it is, because it doesn't have a lot of fluff in it, because they had to present it to a publisher, and a publisher had to actually cut out all the extra stuff that just wasn't going along with what they're trying to present. And so this particular author is actually was local to Orlando for a while. I think she moved away, and I always love her stuff. And she actually has like book 1, 2, and 3, but the earliest book, it wasn't attached. It was just the book, and that was it. Later she republished and then added additions to it. So the one I have is called Green Witchcraft by AOML, or Ann Mora. And this one, this has a lot of everything in it. Green Witchcraft is basically, it's basically more of incorporating more natural things into your life, especially when it comes to your diet, and a lot of it's about using herbs. And I know there's a lot of like crystal witches. They use crystals to do their practice. And this one, it's getting back to the roots, pun intended, haha. But it's getting back to using the green stuff, using herbs and everything in your practice, and doing natural magic, bringing out the natural in people, not trying to fight the things, not trying to curse people, but trying to bring out the good in them. And this book I really loved. There were some good chapters on there that were good for listing herbs and what they're used for. She does list some crystals in there, but I don't think crystals are her thing really. At least not in the first book that she wrote. Let's see what else. This is actually a good author, so I'm actually going to say he's a reputable author, or at least I liked him. He made a book called The Wiccan Warrior, which was really good, but it was kind of like One Last Time by John Edwards. It was really just something that he was feeling in the moment, and he was writing on how he is a cop and how he brought his way of life, or his philosophy, into how he incorporated it into his life, in his everyday life. And then his next book was actually kind of a workbook in a sense, Full Contact Magic, which this one, if you get only one out of the two, I would recommend getting this one, because this one has a lot of the hefty stuff that most people that buy these kind of books look for. But I mean, if you get both, you'll understand his philosophy, and you'll understand why he does the things that he does, and how he incorporates that into his magic, and it'll actually make that workbook so much better. I can't remember like any particulars of this book, because it's been like a really long time since I read this book. I think I got it in like 2000. But I just liked the first one. It was basically like a memoir, basically. I just like how he was talking about his everyday life, and how he was a cop, and he saw like horrible things, and how he came to grips with it, and how he made his life a little bit better using, the power of Wicca. And so I'm going to leave that there, and I hopefully out of all these books, I hope you guys get these two, because these are really like A+ material. Um, and the last one, well, I actually have a couple more, but the last one, as far as energy work that's really good for you. I found this was probably, I want to say this is the second or third book I bought before I bought the Full Contact Magic. And this one has a lot of information in it, and in fact I would have to say it probably has too much information in it that you have to fish through it. It's more of a research book, more of a resource book. So just know that in advance that it's very, 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 very in depth. And so I'm going to say Kundalini and the Charkas. The author is Guinevere Lewis Paulson. She writes other books, and those books are really good as well. There's actually a newer version of this book that's kind of been republished, and from what I heard, there's some stuff that was cut out in it, so that's why I'm recommending this one over the newest one. But I know in the newest one, she kind of, what she takes out, what is in there, she re-explains further so as not to confuse everyone. Because like I said, it's a real hefty book. If you've read any like Eastern philosophy books, like anything on Buddhism and Hinduism, I mean it's heavily inspired by Hinduism, and so it's really thick, and so some, I guess, not so pagan books I'm gonna recommend because that's just how I am. And the one that I really liked is, although it is a Buddhist inspired book, it's really a book about, if people know the term shadow work or are into that term, it's much like that. And it's called the book on the taboo against knowing who you are. And basically this is a book that he goes into these essays explaining all the certain illusions that the world has made us to believe, and how to kind of grasp what is really there, being present. In Buddhism and Hinduism, like any meditation, the main theme is just being present. That's the main idea, is being present, paying attention to what is really there, and not adding your fantasy to it. And this book kind of breaks down on all the things that society wants us to be, and all the things that we really should be, and all the things that we should embrace in ourselves, and it's not taboo to embrace. The first chapter is actually talking about the sex talk that parents usually have, and how in Japan that they don't have the sex talk, and they just slip a little book under the pillow on their certain birthday, and that's how they have the sex talk. And he was kind of saying that, what if they misinterpret what's in that book, and they want to ask you a question, and they can't ask you because you're too embarrassed to have it? What impact does that have on your child? And he was just going into the certain aspects of that on, basically just tell the truth. I mean, even though it's uncomfortable, the truth will always be uncomfortable. In fact, I think in America, or anyone has learned that the truth gets you in more trouble than telling a lie. That's why telling a lie is easier. And so I'm going to leave all that for you to read in the book, but it is a really good, interesting book. And it's definitely something to add to your shelf if you want something different. So the other book that I would recommend, along the Buddhist theme, of course, because that's me, although this has a Buddhist title to it, is actually not a Buddhist book. It was about this person that one day he was at his job, and he realized that, he had a eureka moment that, it's not all about this. It's not about getting a high dollar job to pay for high dollar items than to be broke at the end and then be miserable and then to wake up and go do it all over again. And so what he did, he ended up actually quitting his job and joining a monastery in Hawaii, I believe. And then he went, to different monasteries that was more fit into his style, because there are over 300 different traditions of Buddhism alone, and each monastery practices Buddhism in a different way, just like each Christian or Catholic church chooses what they want to present to their people. And so this is about him, being in the monastery and keeping in touch with his family, and these are questions the family is asking him, and he's kind of responding to them. As well, there are some advice that he has given to his family about certain things that are happening in their life, and I really found this book interesting. So I hope some of you guys get it, and it's called Buddhist Book Camp by Timber Hawkeye. He goes to say, hint, this book is not about Buddhism, it's about life. So that's something that I really that really caught my attention, so I had to get the book, obviously. And for my last recommendation, I think that's my last one. Truth can be found anywhere in this world. It's just a matter of you opening your ears and listening. It's just like music can be found anywhere. It's just a matter of disregarding your preference and listening without any judgment. And so, although this is a fiction book, there are some good philosophies in there, as far as magical work, as far as keeping your mind in its spiritual state. And for anyone who has read this book, I would love to hear your comments on this series. It's by Mercedes Lackey, in the series called the Elemental Series. And what she does in the Elemental Series, she usually takes, like, in her early ones it was Disney, and then later ones she took fables and stuff and made them into modern stories. But this particular one I really liked. It is the story of Cinderella, and it's called The Phoenix in Ashes. And what she does is she takes the story of Cinderella and kind of modernizes it a little bit. It's not taken in like this time, but in like I think it was 1930, somewhere around there. And basically she's a witch that's kind of awakening. She didn't know what it was in the beginning, but her stepmother is a fire witch. And she is awakening to be an earth witch, if I remember correctly. And it's just the philosophy that was in this book. A lot of alchemists, people who love alchemy, will probably find this book really interesting, because that's some of the concepts that were used, the basis of the philosophy of this witch world. So I'm going to leave that there. This is probably a really long video, and I know iPad, it makes it a really large file. So I wanted to say thank you guys for listening to this video, and I hope some of you guys will get these books. If any of you have these books and you want to make a comment, please do, because I always like to hear opinions of other people and see what they thought of these books. Alright, you guys have a great day. Zai Jin.